2 weeks till the election, and in about 35 key races, Tea Party candidates are headed or ahead, or within striking distance, and a Tea Party caucus with an even modest boost in membership could influence votes in Congress. Nobody actually knows what they're for. We just know what they are against, and they're against the government, so I don't know what they're for. But what really happens if the Mad as Hell crowd makes it to Washington? The movement has always claimed to be without a leader. Well, they're going to have some kind of a leader. We've seen it in repeated denials, in fact, from the billionaire Koch brothers and their energy company when accused of bankrolling the movement. Now they're singing a bit of a different tune after a video surfaced of David Koch at an Americans for Prosperity rally as one Tea Party activist after another report back to him about their efforts. It's all in a documentary called AstroTurf Wars, How Corporate America Faked a Grassroots Revolution. Journalist Mark Ames has written in no uncertain terms about the Tea Party's origins, its well-funded backers. He was targeted himself because of his early reporting. Mark, a man who takes his inspiration from the saying, inflict and endure, and a man who lives to that end. Educate us a little bit, Mark, as to how much of this is really a case of a very small special interest of rich people manipulating an angry population for reasons that you and I are also angry about, but conducting that manipulation basically to the advancement of the further destruction of this country and enhancement of their wealth.
Well, see, the reason I and my co-author of the first articles that exposed the link between the billionaire Kochs and the Tea Party movement, his name is Yasha Levine, we wrote this article together. The reason why we were able to see this, I think, before most other journalists here is because we worked in Russia. And in Russia, we saw develop what they called virtual politics and virtual democracy. And you had these virtual opposition movements set up by the oligarchs and the people in power with PR firms and very sophisticated PR operatives. And they would actually get people out to protest and to basically do the bidding of the oligarchs who really controlled that country. So, you know, to be quite honest, it was pretty shocking and disturbing to come back here. My paper was shut down in Russia in 2008, to come back and see that our democracy had sort of degenerated so far that it was starting to resemble Russia's virtual democracy. And then all of a sudden this virtual opposition movement appears, and you have all these people hitting the streets basically doing the billionaires' bidding. It was disturbing, and I'm still kind of getting used to the fact that that things have really gotten that bad here.
What are the keys to manipulating understandably disenfranchised people into basically fighting for policies that they think will empower them in some way, or that plays to some emotional manipulation, like a Bill O'Reilly Muslim comment that at the same time actually advances their own destruction and the further accumulation of the power of those that they claim to hate?
Well, first of all, this is an old trick. If you go back, as I wrote a book about workplace shootings, if you go back even to Roman times or to, slave management manuals that were written in the 1800s in the South, generally slave management theory said that you should try to make your slave identify his personal interest with the interest of his master. And the way you do it is, have an outside enemy, or you make the slave think that you and he get along and see eye to eye on certain things, so that eventually the slave winds up adopting the master's own interest and painting the fence on his own because he thinks it's in his interest as well. What in this case, what they really did is, quite frankly, they played on people's fear, anger, and hatred. And as the economy is worsening, as people have less and less power, they really tapped into that anger and hatred, which is really big and strong and growing in this country, and this sense of enemy and powerlessness. And they were able to focus it on, on the current government. I mean, we've got to remember now, the Tea Party movement started literally a few weeks after Obama took power, as if he had already caused all the harm. The problem is that the other side, the Democrats, there's this void, an ideological sort of void on the left or on the liberal side that isn't really seeking to tap into the anger and enemy and alienation that is really widespread in this country. So the right really took advantage of it, played on people's fears, played on their, their anger, frustration, and powerlessness. and ultimately made them think that by joining this Tea Party movement that they were actually fighting for their own interests. But in fact, you know, you have that one woman holding up a sign, "Government, keep your hands off my Medicare." People are being led, you know, right over the cliff.
Yeah. Well, listen, not for long, especially with work from people like yourself and so many others. They're not the only ones who are angry, and there are more of us who are angry than there are of them, and I think we're more prepared to use our anger to solve our problems and prevent those who would use their anger to destroy our country or make themselves rich. We thank you for your efforts, Mark Ames Levine. Follow him on Twitter, Mark Ames. Always a pleasure.